Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We have a very interesting story here. It's another one of those, really. It's another one of those marking your own homework stories. We keep getting a lot of them from the SNP. Well, this time you have the government's Sport and Social Care Minister, Maree Todd, getting up and saying that we've got this wonderful pro-Skexit story. Look, what a brilliant example of what will happen to Scotland if we were given complete and utter independence. See how bright and rosy the future would be. See how happy, smiling children would wander free in a land without having any kind of Westminster oversight onto the terrible things that we plan to do, or something like that. What she doesn't point out, whether deliberately or accidentally, is that this Skexit story to which she is alluding was authored by someone she knows. That someone being Humza Yousaf. So what she's saying is, hey look, the leader of our party has written something that describes how wonderful independence is, and we're going to use that as an example of how wonderful independence is and pretend that it isn't just a complete load of utter rubbish written by our glorious leader who can do no wrong. It is an absolute cult, isn't it? And it's a self-referential cult at that. Let's have a look to see why Maree Todd really ought to consider her position, since she's quite incapable of free and independent thought. Here you go. So, SNP Minister mocked as dishonest after sharing a link to a pro-Skexit story, without mentioning the author is, of course, Humza Yousaf. The Scottish Government's Sport and Social Care Minister, Maree Todd, was criticised for urging her followers to read a Financial Times piece headlined "Scotland's Economic Potential is Blocked by a Failing UK," but did not state that this was written by the First Minister. Yeah, she said, look, this independent report, independent, really? It was written by somebody who we will not name, says Scotland's brilliant if it was free from Westminster. No, Scotland would be even more screwed. See how bad it is now. See the mess they've made now. And that's with the Westminster there to try and reduce the worst of it. Imagine without the funding, imagine without the oversight, you would have your named person. Your children would not be your own. You would have the gender reform bill. You wouldn't know who was male or female. This is the madness that is modern day Scotland, run by a cult, an evil cult, led of course by an anti-white racist. An SNP minister has been mocked as dishonest after sharing a pro-Skexit news article without mentioning that the author is actually her boss. Sport and Social Care Minister Maree Todd urged her followers to read a Financial Times piece which had the headline "Scotland's Economic Potential is Blocked by a Failing UK," and thus alluding to the fact that the Financial Times was saying that Scotland should be free and independent, without saying that it wasn't a piece by the Times, but it was the Times publishing a piece, of course, by the Grand Mufti himself. She wrote, "Check out this Financial Times headline telling us what we already know," before sharing a link to the opinion column, which was actually penned by Humza Yousaf. The First Minister claims in the article, if Scotland became independent, it could boost the rest of the UK's economy. Well, I will say absolutely, because it won't be drawing down and slowing down the UK's economy with its incredibly high taxation, which is driving investment away and removing entrepreneurship and, innovation, because the people who are skilled and educated are leaving. And so they're leaving to come to the rest of the UK, and thus the rest of the UK would boom, but only at the expense of Scotland, sinking even further into the mire. And that's what happens when you have people with an IQ of 86 put in charge of the economy. It was the clandestine way in which Miss Todd pointed her followers to the story, which was criticised, as she failed to say that it was an opinion piece, and didn't say who it was written by. Scottish Tory MSP, my apologies, Jamie Halcrow-Johnson wrote, "This is at best disingenuous and at worst dishonest." Oh, I think it's definitely dishonest. This is the SNP you're talking about, Jamie. Of course it's dishonest. An SNP minister suggesting that it's an FT article, not just another opinion piece written by her boss, Humza Yousaf. Wonder if he opines about the 17 years of SNP's economic mismanagement of Scotland. He was joined in his criticism by other social media users, and indeed us. One wrote, "This is an opinion piece by the FM. How disingenuous can the SNP stoop? It's pathetic." Another added, "Why did you omit the author of the article at Maree Todd MSP?" A third person said, "Now this is special. Look at the headline, but for goodness sake, don't read the column and definitely try not to notice who wrote it. An uncharitable man would suggest Maree did not." In the article, Yousaf claims that the UK and Scotland are different due to two reasons, with the SNP wanting full control over EU membership and migration. He adds that there is an overwhelming opposition to Brexit in Scotland on migration, and in Scotland the UK on the whole are facing very different population challenges. Yes, the problem with the rest of the UK is people from all over the world are desperate to try and get here. The problem with Scotland is people are desperate to get out. That's the problem. He says, at its simplest, the Scottish Government is keen to see more people come to Scotland to replace the ones who are leaving and taking their wealth and skills and knowledge with them. While the contest at Westminster appears to be over cuts to immigration. That's because we're running out of resources. There's only a small amount of evidence that this statement is true, with migration opinions similar both sides of the border. Oh yeah. The vast amount of people in Scotland, migration is a problem. For Humza Yousaf, it's a different kind of problem. He can't get enough of it, especially people from, his gang. He wants lots of them so that he can turn it into a caliphate, the Caledonian Caliphate. He then claims if Scotland breaks apart from the UK, then the economy might improve. It might. It will crash and burn overnight. We've all seen it. He adds, we face an increasingly stark choice, the continued failure of a Brexit-based UK economy, or if we use our resources and decision-making powers wisely, well, it's a first time for everything, I suppose, the opportunity as an independent country to reach the more normal living standards of our peers. Well, actually, if you look, they've got things like public healthcare that you don't have in Scotland anymore. You've got a failing NHS, you've got failing education, you've got failing communications, you've got failing transport, failing infrastructure, failing everything. The only area of growth is your calls for independence, but you've got no evidence to suggest that in reality an independent Scotland would thrive. And indeed, all pointers and all experts say the complete opposite. He said if Scotland made the choice in favour of independence, it might just be the kind of jolt Westminster policymakers need to re-examine the economic and social model that is proving so damaging for the UK. If it's so damaging for the UK, why are so many Scots leaving Scotland and coming south? Odd, innit? Coming up. They always try to put a spin and a gloss on things, especially when it's looking bad. The worse it gets, the more they spin, the more they paint the gloss. And in Maree Todd's place, she has to go. She has to sit there, acknowledge that she is an absolute failure, that she's misled everybody, that she's not capable of independent thought, and that she knew full well, of course, it was Humza Yousaf and it wasn't an FT piece. But as her party falls apart, as the membership dissolves, as there's lack of zero corporate sponsorship, as more and more police investigations are opened into the shenanigans of the SNP, even she must come to the point now, the realisation, the tipping point, the inflection point, that the game's up, the party's over, and it's time to go and do something far more valuable to society, which in the case of the SNP is to simply dissolve itself and disappear out of politics forever and take their credo of hate and division with them. I'll end there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.